this focus on growth versus profitability as sort of the goal for now, what is it about the economics of what you're doing that suggests that you really have to focus on one versus the other? What is it about that? Must be upfront costs.
That's a great question, and I think I didn't explain it well enough this graph. So basically, our upfront cost is much higher than our recurring cost, as you can see from this graph.
Why?
That is because of our assumptions on the customer acquisition cost, as well as other costs related to, as I say, we verify government IDs, as well as phone numbers and so on. And we are planning to later on implement background checks, which, as you probably know, they're very costly. And that's mainly why the initial cost will be much higher than the recurring cost later on.
Which includes marketing for those personnel.
Okay. Thanks.
Have you identified sources of funding to raise $400,000? Seems like a lot of money.
That's it.
We are currently mainly looking at angel investors. We haven't identified sources of funding. We're currently first releasing our beta product, and then we will be focusing on raising funding.
So I think about the west side of Santa Cruz and the residents there, and they probably would love to see this solution. That having been said, there are issues of liability.
Okay.
There are increasing neighborhood movements to constrain these kind of applications. I don't see you addressing municipal responses to this, which are starting to grow in terms of providing dedicated parking areas with services for specifically the population that you're targeted without the profit motive. And then lastly, there are state and federal parks and things like that that are already, in terms of your pricing, that are already priced below what you're planning to offer.
So first of all, I think a main point is the conception of Vanley was started in response to UC Santa Cruz's problem with the housing crisis in Santa Cruz, where students that couldn't afford housing had to sleep in their vehicles, and the campus was not able to provide parking for that. So the public was not meeting their demands, so they created a petition called the Snail Movement, as we mentioned, and that is kind of our partnership plan to be the answer to their problem. And what was the second part of your question?
Parks.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Parks, so state governments, national government, and municipalities all providing comparable services at prices below yours.
Well, our main market is towards urban environments, so those often are where there's driveways for rental. So places like where you'll see more of those cheaper open spaces is not where Vanley would be more prevalent. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I wanted to segue. You're targeting the start in college communities. Both my kids are in college, and there's not a parking space to be found. They're on lottery systems. So I don't see much college kids having empty driveways to sell to their friends.
That's a great question. Yes, college kids have a lot of cars, but a lot of college kids, because of the reason that you mentioned, don't bring their cars to college. And that means that we just graduated not too long ago, and we have a lot of friends that have empty spaces in their driveways, and that's why we figured that that would be an ideal target for initial testing. And does that answer your question?
It just hasn't been my experience in my students' college cities. Parking's very, very hard to find. But you know better than me, actually. You've done a lot of research.
We asked, we tried to we ran a few user interviews, and that's the general sense that we got. But yes, I'm sure there are situations like at my house, we don't have any parking spaces and driveway spaces available.
I mean, I would say just because that demographic fits the Vanley life, it may not be the best place to start if the spaces aren't there.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so I think part of the reason that Vanley could be so great is we could kind of be that joining of like the baby boomers with the millennial population. So those people living in Santa Cruz are often like retirees and have available driveway space. So they might be willing to park on the street while Vanley customers park in their driveway. So hopefully we can be the ones that break that stigma and join those two populations. So, thank you for your time.